Zara. Zara, can you talk a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Chef Zahra Khan, and I'm the founder of Faya. We've got 3 locations in central London, and I'm here to talk all about the brand and how it came about.
You're an artist. So when you walk into your restaurant, it's pink. When you see your website, it's pink. And I saw these beautiful packaging. So how do you merge from art into food? And how do you do your whole packaging, your whole branding from your restaurant to all your packaging?
So I think one of the biggest factors behind the brand Faya was my love and passion for art. And that was the inspiration for the dishes, for the interiors. And if you look at our menu and if you look at the dishes, they're very artistic, they're very colorful, they're very vibrant, and it's all natural. There's no artificial colors or preservatives in our food. So the focus is on, healthy, good food, but just plated beautifully. Because for me, food is not just a necessity, it should be celebrated. And I wanted to give people this opportunity, that when they're coming to dine in, our customers should just have this experience of the interiors of the food. And it's not just a place you go to eat. The whole thing should be an immersive experience. And that's what we tried to create. So each of our locations, if you look at the interior, they're done differently. So the James Street one is very pink and pastel, and it's got a white blossom tree. And then you just dine under the blossom tree, and we serve our very Instagrammable dishes, which are, like rose avocado toast, or, the pancakes, which we're very well known for. And the motivating factors have been, that creating that ambience as well. And then our Knightsbridge location is an enchanted forest, and it's got a river flowing through. And so as you're walking through, it tells a story that you're walking through a forest. And towards the end, you've got the sun. And then when you go into the toilets, there's the clouds there. So it's almost like you're going up into a forest. And then we've got this beautiful bird cage seating. So they're like bird cages that you sit and dine in. So it's been a bit of interiors plus food. And then we also launched our retail line, which is our products, which is something that came about in COVID. And this is when the whole world was shaken up and we had no idea what to expect. Our restaurant businesses were closed. Our staff, we didn't want to let anybody go. And we luckily were able to retain all our staff without having to let anyone go. And the shops were closed, and we just didn't know what's going to happen next. And we were a very new brand. We had just launched our second location 3 months before the lockdown.
Wow.
So that was just, as a new business, it really shook us. And then we thought, there's something we always wanted to do, was this retail line, the products that we're going to allow people to take a bit of fare home with them. And we get a lot of tourists visiting because of the locations we're in. And there's something for them to take back, like a souvenir. And also to convey a message through our products. So that's how the Fair Cares initiative came about, and that's how the Fair retail line came about. So we're doing products like chocolates, teas, jams, hot chocolates, and the retail line was designed by female illustrators that we hired. And the idea behind that was to have an empowering message with each product.
The messages are amazing. Can you tell the audience here what are some of your messages? I was really push up.
So for the chocolates, for example, the packaging.
And beautiful packaging.
Thank you. It has a message, reach for the stars. And then there's a message behind each product, which says, to reach your potential, you should always aspire to, reach higher, and sky's the limit. And then for teas, the message is self-care, because everybody's so busy in their lives and their routines. It's just to take a moment to enjoy that cup of tea and just to reflect and just to, unwind a bit. So that's the message for the teas. And then we've got another message on the jams, which is be yourself. So to be unique, to be yourself. We've also got a message around diversity on the hot chocolates, that we are stronger together and there is power in numbers. And so, we tried to motivate and inspire and just offer this through our products. And that was sort of the background
I
behind
love
that.
your messages.
Oh, thank you. And the sales from our retail line, so 5% of the sales go towards funding our charity fair cares. So that is something how we can drive our social initiative. That's how we give back to society. That's how we work and partner with other charities as well.
What I'm really interested in, and I thought is fascinating, is when I was reading what you did and you create the social initiative. And I believe that the social initiative is prompted by your experience being in London, being in this in your school, being the only Pakistani, and also you're born in Pakistan and you were trying to hope and inspire all the young women. So can you elaborate on that?
So interestingly enough, in my school, I was being a chef, and I think if you look at the culinary world, it's a very male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
And for Pakistani women, or I think women of Asian descent, it's very uncommon to explore this field as a career. So I was the only Pakistani student at my time in the school. But in the history of the school, and this is UK's oldest cookery school, I was the only female Pakistani that has ever
Wow.
been studied at that school. So I just feel like, this was something that it's so uncommon, but it's something that, has brought me a long way on my journey. I've learned so much along the way, and I feel like it's a great career path for young women as well, because a lot of women, especially in Pakistan, aspire to be chefs. But in Pakistan as well, right? But it gets, there's this thinking around it that women are traditional cooks. They're meant to cook at home for the families, and they're not meant to do this as a career, which is
But this is very true in the whole of Asia. The perception. I mean, there's a lot of great women chef and great women cook, but they are all limited in their home kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
And then when you go to see professional, I'm foodie, so I go to all the restaurant. You mainly see men.
You see men, right?
Chef.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. And how did you overcome this barrier, and how do you challenge the norm?
So I think there was a lot of talent as well, which I see also, in Pakistani women. But because they're just cooking at home out of necessity, out of need, they don't get to explore this. But I think in my case, I was lucky that I got the opportunity to gain that confidence by going to culinary school, to, further polish my skills, and to get that confidence in just cooking just about anything. You'll put a cut of meat in front of me. I know how to use the knife properly. So I think that's what's lacking, because there's no resources in Pakistan. So I think that is what opened my eyes to, the basics, that, okay, there's a certain way to hold a knife, which you just wouldn't think about. There's a certain way to cut a vegetable. So it's things from the basics that I learned going up to, fine dining standards. And I think that is something that there needs to be more awareness as well, and opportunities for women who are talented, and for women who want to explore this as a career. And so my challenges obviously were, because everything was so new. I had never heard of these things, and just it was very interesting to me. It was a lot of learning for me as well. Obviously, it was challenging because it is a male-dominated industry. Working in the kitchens, I've worked in kitchens where I've been surrounded by 20 men, and they would be swearing, and it's not a very pleasant environment. And I'm short as well. I'm quite petite, so I remember it being very disturbing. And, I used to go home and cry because it was just intense, and the pressure of it. And I realized this is too much. And then when I went on to open my own restaurant, I said, this is not what I want my kitchen to look like. I want women to work in this kitchen, and I want them to feel comfortable. And I don't want this pressure, and I don't want this stressful environment. It shouldn't be like that. So this was my vision of doing fare differently.
And so you enjoy being said, yes, chef, no, chef. I do this, chef.
Yeah, because it's very stressful. I mean, if you've been behind the scenes in a busy restaurant kitchen.
Yeah, because the orders, you have to fulfill the orders
yes.
in a So I read that your 75% of your staff are all female.
I mean, the focus has always been around a 75% female workforce and the diversity across our team. It's apparent we've got, people from all sorts of walks of life. When I first opened Fair, I was a young mother myself. My daughter was only 5 months old. And then I was launching this side by side. And I interestingly hired a lot of mothers. And just because, you just realize there's like this empathy as well. And then once you're in that position, but a lot of mothers who were looking for work who had no experience. And this is where I think I challenged myself, but it's also one of the biggest challenge I faced was employing staff that didn't have that experience, and then I was having to train them at the same time. And then as a new business, these were the initial struggles. But for me, it came from a place that I wanted to give them the opportunities to step up. I wanted to give single mothers and these young mothers that platform, and that is how it came about. And that's sort of always been the vision from when I had the one location which had only 8 staff. To now having 50 staff. It's always been not about the experience. I will not look at a CV and think, okay, you have experience, I want you. I will look at the person and I will say, okay, I can give them the platform.
This is so Asian. I look in your face, I look at how you move, and I will employ you not looking at the CV. That's great. And so any of your staff now becomes your right hand, becomes your sous chef. Any of these?
Yes, lots of growth. So we've had staff. Some of them have been with us since we started Fair in 2018 when we just had the one location. We've had people join us as KPs and move their way up to the chef's level, even the management level. We have people start from barista level to become general manager. So there's been lots of opportunities because as a company we have grown, and a lot of the staff they have grown with us.
And also, I read that you also have a charity.
The Fair Cares initiative was, that is our charity initiative. And then we work alongside other charities. For example, British Heart Foundation. We work with Refuge, which is a charity it's a shelter for women and children. So we do partner with multiple charities along the way and see how we can contribute and give back to society.
I think it's really interesting for a Pakistani lady who founded this charity and to address gender equality.
I mean, I feel like we are trying as a small business to do our part, but on the bigger scheme of things, there's a lot of businesses that still, unfortunately do not pay women. I mean, even look at, some big industries, women are not making enough money, and there's always this glass ceiling for women, and there's always so many limitations, like, women are going to go on and have kids, and they're going to have career breaks, and all of that exists. So it's much harder for a woman to make her way up. The gender pay gap, obviously, we're trying as a very small business on a very small scale. How we can contribute is by making sure that we are not discriminating, in the gender pay. So regardless of if you're male or female, that's not a criteria for us to decide how much money you make. And it's unfortunate because, for women, it's not easy. There's the glass ceiling exists for women in any career path. There's all these expectations from women, like taking care of the home, motherhood, a career break is on the cards. And I feel like all of that in any industry will hold a woman back, even though I feel like, women can achieve so much like higher heights and they're capable of so much more, but I feel like the stigma that exists in our society is sort of holding them back from all of this, and I hope that other companies and other industries do step up, and there shouldn't be this discrimination in the gender pay, and that's just one of the initiatives that really appeal to us as a business.
But it's really great that you're starting that. And tell me, why is the cafe Kofia?
So it's actually named after my daughter, Sophia. So she was born, I think, around the same time that we finally got the first site for Faya after 2 years of searching, pitching our concepts. And back in 2017, 2018, the market was very saturated. The hospitality industry was booming. You wouldn't find any empty sites in the prime locations. And it was a very difficult time to just, start a new concept and launch yourself and establish yourself. And then any landlords that we were pitching this concept to were like, what's your background? But what's your experience? What are you bringing? How are you going to afford to rent this? So we had to pay a hefty deposit, a year and a half rent upfront, just to secure a site. Even then, we couldn't find sites. So this site just came about right as I gave birth. And then it just, she was the lucky charm, and it's named after her.
So this is a family business, right? But then how does your husband get involved with this? What is his position?
So he's actually an investment banker. That's his background. So he's been in the financial industry. And he has always inspired and motivated and pushed me towards this, to pursue this as a career, which I've been really lucky to have a family that has actually seen this talent or my passion and actually encouraged it. So I think he was the one person that really pushed me and said, we'll do it together and I'll do it with you.
When you say that he's doing it with you, what do you mean in that
So
sense?
he is actually helping out with the business as well, because he just to execute, just to get everything, it hasn't been easy. And
Of course it's
especially
not.
because we had no experience
Yeah,
in
of
London.
course.
Everything was new. So I think we navigated together. And obviously a lot of it is just my contribution and it's my vision, and he doesn't know how to cook. And so a lot of that has been my input.
But moral support is very important.
Yes, but his support has been the biggest factor that's that has me going even
So
now.
what does he think about this gender inequality that
He-
you're addressing?
Yeah, he 100%, he's very supportive of this as well. And and that is something that we are trying to do together, because he's in agreement, in alignment with this as well.
You are from Pakistan, and you're born in Pakistan, and then you moved to Canada. Then I was thinking that your parents wanted you to study medicine, but I thought in Pakistan, most of the parents, they are very traditional.
No, you're right. In general, most parents, if you look, I think it's changing now, that they're becoming more aware, because a lot of women do want to pursue higher education. They go on to become doctors, dentists, lawyers. All sorts of career paths for women are opening up now. And you're right.
In Pakistan.
In Pakistan. And that is the change that I've seen, in my parents' generation as well. So my mom is a doctor and my dad was an engineer. So for them, it was important.
Were they arranged marriage?
Yes, they were.
So was your marriage arranged?
It wasn't, no.
So it's pretty amazing, because I was actually told even in India today, most marriages are arranged, and Pakistan is even more traditional and more conservative than India. To have you the wish to have you to become a doctor must be because of your mother.
Yes, that's right.
And how was your growing up in Pakistan like?
So growing up,
Having your mother being a professional as well.
yes, yeah, I think that really helped, because it wasn't the traditional setup that you would see, where the mothers were mostly homemakers and they would stay at home, and only the males, were working, and women, it was frowned upon. If you go back a few generations, then traditionally women weren't allowed to work.
Yeah.
They were meant to stay at home. They were expected to just take care of the kids, cook, and that was sort of the role. But I think what we've seen is that shift and that change now, which I have seen my mother do. So when I grew up, and I think my mother lived abroad most of her life.
Really? Was she educated abroad?
She was educated abroad as well. She lived in Paris, she lived in London, she lived in Brunei, because my grandfather was in the army. So because of that, they traveled around a lot. And I think that's how it changed. Also, my mom, so my grandfather, he's got 3 girls, so there were 3 daughters. So all 3 of them went on to, pursue their careers. And that's where my mom, sort of said that, I want you to, it would be nice if you could follow in my footsteps and become a doctor as well.
And that wasn't really typical Pakistanians, right?
Yeah.
And then when you went to Canada, was there a big change from living in Pakistan and then moving to Canada?
Definitely, definitely. I was a teenager when I moved. And so, you have a good idea about your culture, about society. So I had a good understanding, but still, when you move to a foreign country and, everything is new to you.
Of course.
I had interestingly always studied in an all-girls school as well. So when I moved to Canada, it was like a co-ed school. So that for me
my
was
God.
one of the
First time you
biggest
see
changes.
boys, my God.
That was one of the biggest changes because since I was 3 years old, I was surrounded by girls.
Yeah.
Even though I grew up with two brothers, but still that part, school was, it took a bit of settling in because I hadn't changed schools since I was 3. I was in the same school.
How amazing.
So it was a big change, but it was good that, my family, we all moved together. So we immigrated to Canada, and that was for the universities and the better education. And that's a decision that my parents took to give us a better life. So it was a big sacrifice, on their part. Once you become a parent and a mother, myself, I've understood, the sacrifices that they've had to make.
Which year did you stop from studying medicine? Year 2 or year 3?
So basically in my university, I was doing pre-medical. So I have a Bachelor of Science and then a psychology.
You must have very high grades to do medicine.
So, I finished my diploma. I graduated. I didn't
graduated?
I didn't leave it midway.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is what my mom said to me. She said, you want whatever you want to do, I want you to at least have this degree to just as a, something to fall back on. At least you have this
security
base, like a foundation. And because I'd always studied sciences, even when I moved to Canada, and I wanted to do, because that's when I realized there's so many options here. Like in Pakistan, it was literally like you become a lawyer, a doctor, or, it's very limited, or an engineer, which,
But all Asian parents, they all want you to have this
that's all
career,
right.
professions all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I moved to Canada, and there's people doing all sorts of different things. I remember there was a woodwork workshop. There used to be a cooking one. There was a beauty one. There was all sorts of different like after school clubs and activities, which I hadn't heard of in Pakistan. So that's when I actually started exploring, because I had been baking since I was 8 years old. Just as a hobby, I just used to love baking, decorating cakes, making cupcakes.
I like cooking, but baking takes a lot of patience. Yeah. It is very different than Chinese cooking. You can do it quite fast. It's just the preparation. So you must be a very patient person.
True. I think I am. And you're right. It probably comes from baking at an early age, because it is it is about patience,
And so when do you tell your parents you wanted to study culinary?
So I think along the way, like when it came to picking subjects for my O-levels, we had this conversation where I said, I want to take the arts because I always used to paint as well. So I had this interest in painting and in baking. And when I approached the subject with them, it was just like, how can you even think about arts, like you're talking to us and you want to do that is not a career, this is what I was told, and I still remember their words. That is something you can do as a hobby, but that is not something you study. You need to study something substantial, and for me that was just, it was very disheartening, and so I said, okay, I'll pick the science subjects and I'll do that, and then it came to moving to Canada and picking my subjects there, and again I had no idea about anything else, what is business, what is so again I chose what I knew, and then I just got pushed into university, and I thought, okay, I'll do this, I'll see how it is. And then, maybe I did enjoy it. It's not that I didn't, but it was just really long. It was, in Canada, it was even longer to become a doctor than it would have been in Pakistan. Because
7 years?
It's almost 10 years until, you do your residency and all of that. And by the time I graduated, I was like, I just want to be working and doing something. Like, I just miss creating things, I think I'm a very craftsy person as well. And so
You're very creative.
I want to be doing things with my hands. So when I was in university, I actually started my business of cakes. And this was just on the side. I was literally pulling all-nighters, finishing wedding cakes, doing birthday cakes.
How wonderful.
And I think that's when I really explored this opportunity. And it's also what kept me sane and, got me through the university years, because it was really tough. studying those science subjects
Of
and
course.
just, just getting through that, knowing that, I'm not just going to exit midway, because I'm the kind of person, if I get myself into something, I need to see it through. And so I believed in that. And I said, okay, once I do this, I'll be in a better position to go up to my parents and say, here, I've done it, but now let me do, what I'm really passionate about.
And when you told them about your dreams, were they shocked?
A little bit, yes. Because they never thought of baking as something that I could make a career out of.
Of
As
course.
something that would
Asian
give me,
parents are.
yeah, that something that would give me that financial independence. I think they didn't think that, I could scale it up to that level. And it was just something that I could do from home, and I could bake, and it was just like a side
But
income.
how do you persuade them to send you to London and then to allow you to go to school?
That was an uphill battle, and I'll be honest, it took almost a year after I graduated, and I just took the year off. I traveled a little bit. I just, with my friends, I just took some time to explore, and that's when I realized, this is what I want to do, and I just want to move. I visited London, and I just fell in love with the city, and I said, this is where I want to come. I want to move
Your
here.
parents are not typical Pakistani parents.
I feel like they are, and then they're not. But
They're
then,
not. You allowing
yeah.
you to travel by yourself after that, and not getting married. That is not typical.
Yeah.
And so I consider you are very lucky and to
Definitely.
have such liberal parents. And when you're here and then you decided,
Yeah, and then I had actually, I was going to study in Canada for culinary school, and I had, looked up some schools, and I had actually agreed with one school that, that's where I was going to go. And then when I just came to London, I fell in love with the city. And I think it took 3 months for me to find the school at Entrepreneurial, which was owned by Gordon Ramsay. I just found the school. I did all the paperwork. Within 3 months, I had my visa, and I was moving to London. And it just came out of nowhere, but I just feel like it's where I was meant to be, and this was meant to happen. And it just worked out so beautifully.
So when you opened the restaurant, and I believe that you must be backing by your parents.
I think it was also very scary because they were financially backing, this dream. And at the same time, they just weren't sure, because restaurant industry is, I think, one of the highest failure rates.
Of course.
Because a lot of restaurants just, especially as a new concept, it's different if you're bringing in a franchise or, this was a complete new concept that, was just in my head. And I put it down on paper. I came up with a business plan. And I think London was one of the most challenging markets as well. So it wasn't easy to set something up in London with no experience, having been just, lived a few months in the city as well. So I think it was a big leap of faith. And I am lucky, like you say, that my parents had that faith and trust in me, and they just let me explore, this opportunity.
So are you going to open fair in Pakistan?
This question I get asked a lot, but I just feel like it's not the market for us at the moment.
Because the gender inequality
True.
in Pakistan
Yeah.
is seriously higher than in European countries or in America.
That's true, yeah. Because there's still that conception that, that we were talking about, that women will not, families aren't willing to let their women work. And there's still families that will do that. And, they will just say, okay, our daughter is going to study maybe to a certain level, but she's not going to work a day in her life. She's going to get married and, So that is still the conception, and that is what we see around us. And I think it will take probably a few generations to shake that up.
So what sort of new world are you expecting that your daughter will grow up in?
So for my daughters, obviously I want to give them a very different lifestyle to what I had, because primarily I grew up in Pakistan, and there were many challenges there, as a woman that you face growing up. And, there's this disparity as well between boys can do this and girls cannot. But when I've got 3 daughters now. So when I'm raising them, it's completely different. I want them to explore the opportunities. I don't want to limit them by saying, you can only become a doctor or a lawyer or, have your, it's like whatever they want to do. So even at this stage, when they're young, they enjoy painting and arts, I'm just letting them explore, and see what they're good at, and not limiting them in any way. And I just want to give them a better life than my parents gave me. And
Growing up in London.
yes. And that is the motivation for me to do well, to aspire to do better in my life, is to give them a better life.
Congratulations, Zara. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure to meet you. And next week I shall come to your fair.
Definitely, I look forward to it. Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you.
It's been lovely.